If you are on the path of self-study, uncovering the hidden worlds within yourself and around you, self-awareness, then you have undoubtedly come up against many situations where people did not understand you, they were not able to perceive you, and probably just as a regular person in this world, experienced a lot of situations where you felt invisible or rejected. And if you're on this path of initiation, of spiritual evolution, of ensoulment of the body, then chances are, if you're even hanging around 45 seconds into this video, then you have lost people along the way, whether that's in a moment of a conversation or lost a relationship literally because it was no longer compatible or feeding your soul growth. And I want to say that I want to give a bit of a reframe. So a lot of us tend to take these things personally because of trauma or past experiences that we've had. And what we're moving towards is, as we continue to see a greater and greater split within the collective of humanity, meaning that although there are a lot of people waking up and working on themselves and starting this whole process of really questioning everything, there's also a lot of people who are going further and further into materialism, into the 3D calcifying, and not actually working upon the heart and getting into the body. And so there's going to be so much misunderstanding. And what I want to say is that if we're not taking it personally, then what are we doing? We are, first of all, understanding how frequency bandwidths function. So everybody is operating at different bandwidths of consciousness. Some people are actually able and are holding more consciousness in their body, so they're able to perceive more. Their higher sensory perceptions have been opened up. They're able to sit with more. The capacity is there. And it shifts the language. It shifts the way that you speak, because there's a whole new language as you start to actually go through this process of initiation and ensoulment. And what happens is people will not be able to understand you or perceive you, certain people. And instead of assuming or making that mean something about you, if you can understand that this is literally just how this process of evolution takes place, there are always going to be people that are less initiated on the path, and there are always going to be people that are more initiated. And sometimes when that gap is too wide, there's a rejection of that thing, or there's a total, either it just doesn't even show up in their reality, or if it does, it's something that repulses them, or that they don't understand, or that just seems like psychobabble to them, or spiritual nonsense, because it takes a more developed set of senses to actually be able to perceive, what some people are talking about, just simply because of the level that they are operating at. So when you know yourself, when you trust yourself, when you really know that what you're saying is coherent, just perhaps imperceivable to people who have not yet initiated themselves beyond just operating out of a limited set of perception, then you know that this is just how it functions. And it's a safeguard, actually. It's a safeguard in place, because something is happening in that, first of all, something is happening in that person. So if they do happen to come into contact with you, if it does even come into their reality, and it creates a tension within them, or something that they don't understand or that they push against, that's still an experience that's hopefully going to lead them towards greater self-awareness and wholeness. We don't get to decide, what another person does with the frequency that we are and that we put out. Our job is to just be who and what we are. So one other thing that I want to say is on this path, a lot of people who have been sucked into the new age and just kind of these fantastical spiritual practices, and so much of it is divorced from an actual grounded cosmology, and it doesn't actually prepare the being for opening themselves up on that level. So for people not to be able to understand you is actually a good thing at a certain point, because if they were to just open that up, it's like people doing ayahuasca or people, blasting themselves out with these processes, but they have no way of integrating or actually making sense of what they just experienced. That is not spirituality. That's like fragmenting ourselves and going into delusion and kind of cherry picking our experiences and then just creating whatever we want, instead of actually dedicating ourselves to study of how uncovering the hidden knowledge within ourselves and the greater universe and the interconnectedness of all of that functions. So we almost don't want to make sense to everyone, because that would be to go against law, which safeguards us. I mean, I truly believe that I had my psychic abilities kind of shut down right after my teen years, because there was so much that I was opening myself up to that I had no discernment, no foundation, no embodiment, no cosmology, and no higher faculties really developed to be able to accurately perceive, make sense of, and interface with what it was that was coming through. So what is very exciting is that we have an opportunity to actually ensoul the body, to actually open up higher modes of perception, a wider spectrum of being able, more free will, a wider spectrum of being able to operate within ourselves and perceive all that is. But that comes with a cost of dedicating ourselves and devoting ourselves to this work. And so we don't get to just, cherry pick things, or we don't get to just take the fruit from another person's garden. This was something that my client was saying, which preceded this video, this conversation. And it was so beautifully put that, she's like, I want the living tree. I want the living tree in here. It's easy to go out and just take fruit from other people's gardens, but, or to intellectualize things, or it's another thing to create the living intelligence and tree in here, which produces its own fruits. And I really, I just really appreciate the work of Steiner and anthroposophy, because it gives such a grounded, detailed structure to the process of initiation. And that is what I think has been lost from a lot of modern spiritual practices, that people are just, running around without a really deep context, and also without the foundation and the preparation, which is really, really necessary. So let's keep in mind, right? There are safeguards, there are reasons why people will not be able to understand us. And I know that for a lot of people, they have this experience of feeling like fewer and fewer people are actually able to maybe even have a conversation with you to this level, or to go to certain depths with you, the more that you're able to contain within yourself. and unlock. And that is true. That is true, because this path is very challenging. But there are others, and there certainly are others. And we're out here gang. And so, yeah, it helps when we can continue to have these conversations, and just to know, like, if you're coherent and you make sense, don't worry that people can't perceive or understand you. You know, process the deeper, earlier wounds and traumas that are connected to that, so you can just see them for who and what they are in that moment, which is just somebody who's not actually initiated to perceive what you're bringing forward. And we don't even have to get into superiority, inferiority at that point, right? Like, there's something that we can learn from everyone. And yeah, I hope that's helpful. All right, be well, guys. Mwah.